Well, the old saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Well, I've been trying for the past 12 months or so to catch up with my next guest. He's got an intriguing story to tell. It involves the Watts family on a number of levels. I'm delighted to be joined by Stephen Condon. Well, Steve, good to catch up with you finally. It's been quite a while in the making, this interview, but it's an intriguing story to tell, particularly for someone who started out with no involvement whatsoever in harness racing.
Yeah, that's correct, mate. Yeah.
It was your brother Doug, 6 years your senior, who started to get involved in harness racing and sort of like dragged you into it.
Yes, that's correct, yes. Doug was very good friends with the Forrest family, Greg and Ernie Forrest, and they lived up the road and they had harness horses, as it turned out. Yeah, stable down towards Fairfield. They used to float them down the Fairfield track. So that's how I got my introduction to harness racing, as it turns out.
Yeah, they enjoyed a lot of success, and the Forrest name continues today. In fact, continues today at Menangle through Grand Forest.
Yeah, that's correct. He was very unlucky on a little mare called Jackie's Gift in the Trotters today. Yes, yeah, it should have been just her waywardness. It's cost him getting the bickies.
Now, your involvement in horsepower was of a total different nature. You were a mechanic and also a panel beater during the early stages of your life.
Yeah, well, it's when I very first left school, I was into cars, and horses were not really my forte at present. You know, as a young bloke, everybody wants speed, and get into a car.
So Doug started to get more involved in harness racing, and then started to spark your interest.
Yeah, that's correct. As it turned out, he purchased a couple of old horses at the old Ingham sales. They used to have dispersal sales at Ingham's, all the old Royals, and he purchased this old horse called Royal Kentucky. And I've always sort of had a liking for horses, and he asked me did I want him, and so I took him, and that's how I started off with an old horse called Royal Kentucky.
What a wonderful family, the Ingham family. Let's slip through our fingers.
Yes, yeah, that's right, exactly. Yeah, had a lot of great involvement in harness racing, going back with PJ Hall, and they supported harness racing very financially, as it turns out. The Ingham family, the Ingham boys.
Yeah, they had an association too with Owen Glendinning. I remember a very favourite horse of mine back in the day, Jason King. Jack was always into the thoroughbreds, but Bob always had that inclination towards harness racing.
Yes, and he also had another good horse, Loyal Lord. Yeah, there was another good horse of Owen's, and Owen, he was an exclusive trainer pretty much for the Ingham's family. I was reasonably friendly with Owen and got to know Owen a little bit.
Yeah, you also probably became a neighbour of Owen. We're going to go into that a little bit later, but as a 16-year-old, you started to take those important steps into the harness racing industry. Yes,
I just decided, that I always, like I say, I had a love for horses, and just decided to give away the cars, and fell into some friends. We used to knock around together, the Sherwood boys, and Mickey Watkins at the time, Mick, and anyway, so I just went a different direction in my life, as it turned out, with horses.
You then started to take a number of important steps with names that are just who's who of harness racing, and we commenced with Stan Bond and Dennis Wilson.
Yes, Stan, very good trainer, very good horseman, Stan, very good farrier. He actually he helped us with Royal Kentucky. He shot him off his knee. He used to be an old knee puncher, and Stan, he said to me one day, he said, I can get that horse off his knee. And I said, oh, everybody else has shot him, Stan, how would you get him off his knee? Anyway, he did, and we took him in the lift go, backed him, Doug drove him, he led and got the money. Yeah.
Back in that day, Steve, you mentioned Stan Bond with his genius, the way he sorted that horse out, but trainers of that ilk always were able to get their horses going. If someone else had problems, they'd always pick them up, or their own horses, either by the use of a farrier or, as you said, knowing the right gear to put on them.
Yes, that's correct. It's a shame to say, but the mobile racing and the way the style of racing is at the moment, it's not the same. The industry is not the same as horsemanship. You used to have to. It seems to be a bit of a turnover process at the moment with horses. with the mobile racing. But you could set a horse up and with standing starts and the handicapping system, and it was very competitive, and it was very much liked, as an industry with the participants. And you wouldn't be a night of the week that you wouldn't go to a trot meeting. You'd be at every trot meeting.
You then had the opportunity, your first opportunity, to then be associated with the late great Condon Watts.
Yes, I took up a position with Colin as a stable hand. I used to work in the mornings, and I worked for a few people in the mornings, and used to go and work a horse or two in the afternoon, trying to find that break, or trying to find that horse that would sort of set you alight, and you'd be thrilled just to get something to be able to go to the races, as it turns out. But yeah, people like Colin, Eddie Sims, Greg Salakis, the Trittons. I went and worked for Peter Tritton for a while, and it was just and it was good experience about being with these different people and seeing what their ideas were. And you could always, and there's always an old saying, I suppose, you can always learn something from somebody.
There's an interesting name that we're going to squeeze in there. I met him during the very early stages of my career in harness racing through Billy Whittaker and Billy Ellis and Harry Pearce, and they always had the biggest opinion of this particular gentleman as a trainer, Eddie Sims.
Yes, old Eddie. Well, when I went to Ed's, he was going through the stage of cancer, and he wasn't too much hands-on, but he was very entrepreneur. He was at the time, he was one of the very first people to import some stallions out. He brought out Overtrick, I'm pretty sure, when Overtrick come out, and he had the connections in the States. But he was flamboyant, as it turns out, Eddie.
You mentioned Peter Tritton, but his dad Jack, you had a very important change of your career when you got involved with Jack.
Yes, when I was at the Trittons, Jack got a contract in Macau, and he had another fella who was working for Eddie, not for Kevin Newman, sorry. And anyway, he was going with him, and towards when it come getting on the plane, he decided to pull the pin. So the opportunity came for me to take it up, and I took it up because it was what I wanted to do in harness racing. I just wanted to be involved with harness racing, so we packed up and we went to Macau. And
that lasted 18 months?
Yes, that lasted 18 months. Jack stayed on a little bit longer than what I did, as it turns out. But no, it was a young, fresh kid, getting on a plane and going overseas. Didn't know what to expect, to tell you the truth, but it was just, like I say, it was through the love of the game, or trying to succeed in getting a start in the industry. So they were the things that you had to do, and had found a lot of good friends over there, Kiwi friends, and what they did, they brought trainers from all around Australia, all the different states, and that's when they had mobile racing, and it was a 1,000-metre track, and it was all mobile racing, and and that was. It was in 1980. It was 1980, so it was a long time ago.
So what happened then when your career started to unfold when you arrived back, Steve?
Yeah, no, well, I got back home, and I just it was hard to get a start in harness racing. It was hard to find owners because it was very competitive. It was very competitive. Anyway, one part of it, I went back to work. I was working at the markets, at Flemington Markets, for a while with the Russos. There was another harness racing name, as it turns out, and good friends of mine. And then from there, I got an opportunity to go to the Northern Beaches with Chris Gleason, and I had an association with Chris Gleason. It was a very, very good, fine, profitable association.
And his training methods opened your eyes.
Yes, well, he learned off the old great J.J. Ilsley, old Joe, and I was always a fan of Joe's when I was a kid. Old Joe would jump him out in front and let him bowl, and he was a different kettle of fish, Joe, than anybody else in the harness racing industry. And when I picked up his methods when I went over to the Bay. it's very hard to explain in the sense of where the horses find contentment. You know, swimming every day behind the boat, and it was just a good environment out there. The sand track around the bay at Bayview there that we used to use, and even when I after left Chris, I stayed on over the bay myself and had some reasonable success over there, training with their methods, and But anyway, that were the Harold Park days.
And that gave you the opportunity to drive that brilliant mare, Love Despair, and also a very talented performer, Koala Sunrise.
Yes, well, I drove a few winners for Chris. I'm pretty sure we won he did. He won a Harold Park Premiership, trained the drivers. I had the opportunity to drive Love Despair. She ran second in the Wyong Mile. Koala Sunrise, he won an airline sprint and got into a Miracle Mile. Missed out on the drive in the Miracle Mile, but anyway, that was to be expected.
Then you found yourself moving into Luddenham, and it was John Tapp's old establishment, and your neighbour was Owen Glendenning.
Yes, that was correct at the time. Well, it was the airport was going in, and they said, well, you might get a couple of years out of it. Well, it's 2025 now, and the airport still hasn't even. I first moved in there in. Just got to do some figures now, as it turned out. About 1990, I think it was, 1990, and I was there for 11 years. We stayed there for 11 years, and we trained some winners out of the property. We always never had a large team of horses. We always sort of tried to be a little bit not selective, but I meant the late great John Binskin said to me, "Son," he said, "have quality, not quantity." So.
Some of those nice horses you had, Black Minstrel in particular, San Jose.
Yes. We bought him me and a good friend, we bought him at the yearling sales. We didn't give him much money for him. And he was just one of them horses. He just went, and we had some luck and we won a few races with him. And he started in the Foster Sire Stakes, and he won a qualifying and won a heat of that and made the final. He was quite a nice horse.
11 years on from London, you spent that particular joint, and then you found yourself at Fairfield Showgrounds, both working your horses and getting the job as track curator, once again linking up with Colin Watts.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, Colin was president at the Fairfield Harness Racing Club. There was just an opportunity. It was just at a stage in my life where things weren't going as sort of financial with horses, and so the opportunity come to take up the caretaker's house and stables on the Fairfield track, and it was a very good association that I had there with the Fairfield Club. I was there for 17 years until the unfortunate closure of the harness racing track.
And you remember that date extremely well?
Yes, I certainly do. It was 30th of June 2017. I had a little horse that we bred. She was the last horse to work on Fairfield, and it was a Friday, and she worked her in the morning. David Wilkins come and picked her up that evening, and she was the last horse to ever work on Fairfield.
You had a nice mare called Rambo, which ended up turning to be a wonderful producing mare.
Yes, we bought Rambo out of Tasmania. I ended up having a bit of a connection in Tasmania with some people and had an association. Brought a couple of horses up from Tasmania and had a bit of luck with them, and won a couple of races on occasions. Rambo, I just figured out with me brother there, we bred 8 foals out of her, and 6 of them were winners, and still going around today with one of them.
We've mentioned a lot of wonderful names in harness racing. Another one that jumps to mind, you had an association with this particular lady trainer who had a wonderful success rate, along with yourself and Dennis Wilson, Fran Donahue.
Yes, Fran. Me and Dennis, we took up jobs with Fran at one part of it. I don't know why, as it turns out, and she had Leo Ladd, and he was quite a good horse, Leo Ladd. I think he put 11 straight together, as it turned out, and he was quite a good, and I remember he won his second 3-year-old race at Bankstown, and he was very well supported, I could tell you. We walked out of there with big smiles on our face.
Steve, we mentioned a lot of wonderful names, a lot of people that you've respected and learned from, in particular Stan Bond and Chris Gleeson. There's one name that you always admired, and everyone does, Kevin Newman.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, well, Kevin, very good driver, very good, smart, money driver. There's a bit of difference in driving when you need to drive when the cash is on, when the horses are ported. Yeah, that's when you know when you can drive. And J.E. Binskin, he was the same. J.E., very good driver. Kevin Robinson. There's there's that many. If you looked at the books and you could say, you could rattle them off. But I mean, yeah, no, a lot of good horsemen in the eras.
Well, Steve, you were certainly involved in harness racing throughout a wonderful period of this particular sport. It's great to see you keep turning up here at Clubman Angle on a Tuesday to continue association with the sport. And I promise you, I'll stop pestering you now that we've finally got this interview.
Thanks very much. Anyway, yeah, well, we got as I said, we bred one out of Ranbro, and it's a Shubies. His name's Boulder's Roll, and Chris Judd's got him at the moment, and we're having a bit of luck with him, and he's put a couple together since he's come up from Young. We had a good association down at Young also with Josh Powderly, who had an unfortunate accident, and but no, it wasn't through that, but yeah, but sorry, yeah, I got there, but yeah, had a good association with Josh, and the horse come up here. And he's just found him an angle sort of suits the horse okay, and he's been going on from there. And so hopefully in the near future, there's a race picked out for him. So hopefully he gets the chockies there.
Lovely going down memory lane with you, Steve.
Thanks very much, Michael.